So we looked at how we can export a normal map using the multi-map exporter from ZBrush, but let's explore another option, how we could do this in Maya, baking a normal map for the SciFiContainer. So first of all, I'm just going to set the project. It's a good habit to do whenever you come back to your work. Navigate to the folder. It's a bit annoying. I could keep selecting. I don't think I can have any one of these selected. I just want that file path. Let's see. So I'm going to select that file path, Control C, and then I should be able to set project, Control V. See, so now nothing is selected, and we can hit set, and then I could open the last scene. Alright, so here we're back. And that's actually not the latest one, right? We had container 02. That's the retopologized one. And alright, so let's use that as a basis now for the bake that we're about to do in Maya. So to do that, we just need to export the high-res version out of ZBrush as an OBJ. So that means taking this 5.7 million mesh, it's pretty heavy, and exporting it. Just gonna say, yeah, roughly, it's closer to 6, I guess, 6 mil. So yeah, so this actually might take a little while to export. Very heavy OBJs from ZBrush sometimes take a little bit of time. Alright, so now I imported the 6 million OBJ here in Maya. Took a little while to wait for it, but as you can see, there's a lot of data. But it is essentially a normal polygonal object, just a lot heavier than we're usually used to dealing with in Maya, but we can bring it in here just for the purposes of the bake. It's going to be a little heavy. Let's see if I can manage to go to object mode. That would be nice. See, I can hit F8 on my keyboard. Let's give it a minute. Honestly, not sure what it's doing now. So, yeah. I think seeing this heavy mesh in Maya makes us realize how powerful, incredibly powerful ZBrush is at dealing with these really high polygonal meshes, right? Anyway, so there we have it, and that should be fine. And then here's the, let me hide that for now, Control H and Shift H on this guy. So this is the one we originally exported to ZBrush. This is the retopologized version, and I'm gonna get rid of these extra edges that we just inserted for the purposes of polygonal distribution. So all of these. And it is a good idea to get rid of them now before we do the bake, actually, because yeah, they might influence like the surface normals and such. So if the, you know, essentially you want the mesh to be optimized exactly the way, let's say in its final state when you do the bake here in Maya. And also these edges, see, they're all kind of a part of this. They're internal to this UV shell, so they should be okay to delete. Control backspace, there we go. And yeah, so that's fine. Let me delete history. And one thing we're going to do, I'm going to go again to mesh display. And then I like to go, again, like harden edge, and then I unlock the normals, just to kind of make sure that the normals are kind of okay, healthy normals. And then I do a soften edge, just like in ZBrush where we did the what was it, like smooth low-res normals, right, in the multi-map exporter. Yeah, you get the idea. Smooth low-res normals. This is the same thing. We don't want these low-res kind of edges turning up as an artifact in our bake. So now we're going to go to rendering and find transfer maps here. And the target mesh is the low poly. I'm going to shift H now, bring back the high poly one. Again, I'm going to give Maya a minute to try to deal with this poly count. Alright, come on. Come on, come on. And so when it gets that selected, we're going to add it as the source mesh. There we go. Add selected. Yeah. Let's see. There we go. So now that is selected. Which means I can deselect it here. And there we go. So it might, you see, it might take a little while, but essentially it is possible to set this up. So now we have the low poly as the target, the high poly as the source. This is a search envelope, much like when we did the projection in ZBrush, we had to increase the search distance. Same thing. Here we can see like a display of the envelope. This is only kind of the display. Doesn't matter, but for the most part, in my eye, I usually leave that alone, and rarely do I have to go in there and change that. So here we're going to do a normal map. Change this to, let's do a TIFF again, so it'll be close to what we did in ZBrush. And container, yeah, we don't want that in scenes though. Just put it in data for now. And we'll call this container Maya normals. Okay. And a TIFF, we want a tangent space, normal map, and here connect maps to a new shader. Okay, that's fine. We'll do a Maya common output 4K. That's good, that's what we did before. And we're sampling in world space. Sampling quality medium. Alright, that's fine. Alright, just gonna hit bake. And if you have the help line open, this is where you will actually be able to see a pretty unreliable indicator of the time spent on this process. It will take a while, but yeah, I don't know, maybe like 10 minutes for this, and then we'll just hit bake, come back in a while, and see how it went. Let's do a little double check here. So we have low poly and smooth normals on the low poly, okay, and we have the high poly. Doing a normal map, TIFF, shader, 4K, world space. Yeah, looks good. Let's try. Alright, so that took some time here on my computer, maybe about 10 minutes. I go have a look. Let's hide the I'm gonna hide that high poly. There we go. And just remember to go to the material, make sure to change from sRGB to, I'm gonna set this to, just set it to raw. And that looks like a very successful bake. Let's put it in lit mode. Alright. Add a ground plane for fun. Looks very good. Let's have a look at the normal map and Photoshop. And here we go. So yeah, so unlike the bake from ZBrush, now we have this piece much better represented. So there is a conceptual difference here in a little bit in the bake we just did. For one thing, this bake did not require actually the high poly mesh to have any UVs at all. So it just looks at anything that happens to be next to this low poly mesh here in world space, and we did the baking here in world space. Okay, so that is actually different from the ZBrush bake we did, because here it just takes the high poly information and bakes it down as a normal map based on the UVs of this low poly, but it's sort of connected to this mesh. So, but here in Maya, we're freed up from that, right? So anything you want to place here now, you can combine it with this normal map. In other words, if you wanted to place additional, like whatever you want to place in here in world space, you can literally just go in here and place it anywhere you want to. Let's say you wanted to model some additional bolts or something like that, and just bake it down to the normal map, just adding that as source mesh, or combine a lot of meshes into one and add that as the source mesh in your baking operation is in transfer maps. Or, as we know, you can also manually go in and bake several ones and combine them in Photoshop, as we now have seen that we're able to do a little bit of manual tweaking with the normal maps in Photoshop. So there we have it, baking in Maya, and that went very smoothly.